Do you struggle making decisions for yourself? Do you struggle speaking up for yourself? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then you are going to want to watch this video because there is a very specific reason why you struggle with this. And the good news is that you, hopefully, if you implement these tips, tools, and tricks or strategies, I should say, in this video, you will feel so free and you won't struggle with this anymore. So this actually ties in with your parents, okay? And if it wasn't a parent, maybe it was a guardian or a teacher, what have you. But in this video, we're talking about how to deal with toxic parents. So before I continue, if you have no clue who I am, I'm Avi Unfiltered, spiritual medium, holistic health coach, and writer, and I teach people how to get rid of stress through nutrition, lifestyle, spirituality, and beauty. I'm moving over from stress to just teaching people how to live well, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. That's where my spirit is moving me towards. But anyways, feel free to hit the notification bell, subscribe, share this video. And I want to know if you currently are dealing with toxic parents, family members, whoever's toxic in your life. Just drop a comment below. Let me know if you're struggling with that and I'll see how I can help, okay? So there are various reasons why you may be feeling like you cannot make decisions in your adult life. And the first reason why you may feel this way is because your parent could have made all of the decisions for you. So, you might have had maybe what they call, is it a helicopter parent? I don't know. But someone who's overbearing, someone who could be a fearful parent. A lot of times parents, they'll have children and they don't really deal with their trauma. So therefore they'll project their own fears and insecurities when it comes to raising children onto their children, and then their children grow up to become adults and they live in that fear mindset of, oh my God, I'm gonna fall apart. My life's gonna fall apart. I can't make a solid decision to save me, and then this is why a lot of adults, when they get older, they feel like a failure because maybe they feel behind. There's various things. There's also religious factors too, depending on how you grew up. I used to watch a lot of documentaries on the news and Dateline and all that stuff, where it's like, there was this family in 1984 and they grew up in this church and the church was a cult and they all lived together till they were 36 and they didn't feed their children. And it's like these deep, dark stories where you're like, wow. It's like flowers in the attic, where they are stuck in this attic and their parents just don't let them out, and it's just a lot of toxicity. And so you hear these stories, and if you've gone through that, I'm glad you're here. You're meant to be here, and I'm glad you found this video, because so many people have very deep, dark secrets and horror stories and things of that nature, and it does affect you in your adult life. So that's one of the reasons. You've had a parent that was overbearing and tells you what to do. Another reason is, parents can be manipulative. Sometimes parents may lie to you and alter your reality. Maybe you said, mom, didn't you say, or mom or dad, didn't you say we were gonna go on this trip, or we were gonna go here, we were gonna go there, and then your parent tells you, I never said that, or I never did that. And so as an adult, you're constantly thinking, you're imagining things or coming up with scenarios, and people have to go to therapy for this and have severe psychological issues, even a diagnosis, because you start to think that everything you start to become unsure of yourself. And so this creates uncertainty as well. As you get older, you're just like, well, I'm not sure, should I do that? Is it wrong? And a third reason is maybe you were, abused by a parent. So let's say you spilled some, milk because we all used to drink milk when we were little. A lot of people didn't know about nutrition, back then. So everyone was drinking milk and just getting all these autoimmune diseases and inflammatory diseases and osteoporosis and inflammation. And this is why we had colds and flus because of this. And so let's say you dropped some milk on the floor and you had a parent that really just was abusive whenever you would do something wrong. And so now you fear making the wrong decision, because of that harsh penalty that you got from your parent, and I've seen it. I've seen, family members yell for spilling certain things. I've seen people, get their ass beat for doing certain things, and it's just like the harsh punishment. So if you've come across this video, hopefully you're the adult that gets to break this generational curse, because it's a curse. It's a parent learning from their parents, who learned from their parents, who are now passing it down to you, and it's your turn to say, this doesn't make me feel good. So please pat yourself on the back right now and say, I'm amazing, because I'm going to change not only my own life, but those who come after me. We're gonna break this DNA wiring of harshness and trauma and confusion and anger. And drop a comment below as to what maybe you experienced that caused you to be how you are as an adult, whether it's good or bad. I want to know both of them, okay? So those are various reasons why. So the reason why you could feel, fearful of speaking up is because, maybe you had a parent that told you to shut up. Maybe you were the black sheep and maybe everyone just told you to be quiet. With me, I was never told to shut up. People wanted me to shut up and I just never did. I had experienced something very, very traumatic. And normally when people go through things very traumatic at the ages of like 2.5 to 3, where you experience severe abuse and verbal abuse and physical abuse and sexual abuse, wasn't by a family member or relative. If you read my book, then you know. So I told myself, I'm not having it. So whenever someone tried me or said something, I said something back. Even at the age of 5, I would talk to adult. If I didn't like what an adult said, I said something to that adult, and that was just me. It was like the opposite. I felt like no one's gonna say this to me. No one's gonna trap me. No one's gonna do this to me. And, I've been that way. And that's a good thing, because you decide to transmute the power that someone thought they had over you into taking your power back. And I was actually shocked that I was able to do that as a child. I really was. I was not, I was probably a shy child, like in middle school and stuff, but when it came to someone saying or doing something to me, I would go off, like even as a shy, quiet child, because that was just like a trigger for me. It's like, no, you're not. And so, yeah, I was in anger management very young. If you heard my podcast, yeah. So this is why clients come to me, and this is why I help them. People look at me as, I don't know, some people are starstruck by me, and I'm just like, don't be. I'm just like you. I don't know why, but they are probably, because me being a spiritual medium and my presence, you can listen to the podcast that I did with one of my clients, and it's because of the power behind it. And so people gravitate towards that because it enables them to take their power back, and they do. I had one client who, she talks to me every single week over on my TikTok, and she had trouble, speaking up. She left a testimonial, so I'm sharing it. I always get permission to share from my clients, and she struggled speaking up, and so we worked on that. And by the end of the session, she told someone to F off because they were being rude. And it was rightfully so. Sometimes we live in like a utopian world where it's like, you don't tell people to F off. It's like, well, sometimes you have to, so people know not to F with you. And so she did. So sometimes you will have certain situations that make, shape, and mold you. But if you've come from, whether it's your parents, your guardian, or certain toxic family dynamic where it's like, you be quiet, we don't want to hear you speak, then your brain is wired to not talk. It's like, if I talk, this is what's gonna happen. These are the consequences. And so that's a throat chakra blockage. And spiritually, when you have a blocked throat chakra, that blocks so many things from you, so many opportunities. It blocks you from sharing your wisdom. It blocks you from sharing your voice. It blocks you with self-doubt comes in too, because communication is not just your throat, it's your mindset. Communication, that's thoughts, that's what people say, that's you speaking. Everything is impacted. A lot of people were impacted by the Mercury retrograde because Virgo and Gemini, Mercury rules communication, and so it also is Virgo and Gemini. Those are the communicators of the zodiac lots of times. I was thinking of Libra and Aquarius when I said lots of times. They're also, air signs are naturally communicative. So anyways, enough of that little mini astrology lesson. So that's what happens. So how can you actually move forward when you are so used to not having a voice and living in so much fear and anxiety and angst? What is the next step? How do you get over that hump? So the first step is actually, if something is bothering you, you have a right to verbalize it. You have a right to speak up. You have a right to speak up about it. Okay? So go to that person and say, and what I want you to do is, when you talk to people, don't have an expectation. You know what I'm saying? Don't have an expectation. Don't expect for them to be pleasant. Don't expect for them to not be pleasant. The whole point is you speaking up for yourself. Some people don't like to speak up because they think someone else is gonna come and make them feel bad and put it back on them. And what I want you to do is visualize an imaginary shield, okay? And if someone is throwing it back on you, you're not going to absorb their words. You're going to simply listen to what they're saying. Okay? And be confident that you didn't do anything wrong in this situation and no one's going to make you feel wrong. Okay? So before you even do that, say positive affirmations like, I am right. I am valid in what I have to say. I will speak up. They will listen to what I have to say. I will defend myself. I have a right to do this. Okay? Go to that person and talk to them. I don't care if it's a parent. I don't care if it's a grandparent. And you could say, listen, I've been doing a healing and a cleansing process, and old things started to come up that I just wanted to discuss with you. Do you have a moment? And if they say, no, I don't have a moment, no, I don't want to discuss it, then you can say, okay, well, since you don't want to discuss or resolve anything, I think it's best that we have nothing to do with each other. And I think it's best that I depart from you. And I think of that scripture when Yeshua says, depart from me, I never knew you. Whenever someone leaves your life, and it's like permanent, they were never with you in the first place. So you have to understand that it was meant to be, okay? And that's your way out. And what I want you to realize is some things, especially when the person is refusing to resolve something, this is when you gotta just heal, cry it out, and resolve it within yourself, because not everyone is gonna want resolution. some people are afraid to see themselves, and when you bring stuff up, they push it back, because a lot of people, believe it or not, are not in touch with their shadow side. They're not in touch with the healing process. I call it the underworld. It is Pluto, that shadow side. It can also be considered Cancer, because Cancer is the moon, and the moon is all about what's hidden. And this is why when there's an eclipse, things are exposed, and people expose themselves because you got the light shining on what people are trying to hide and shit, and it's just funny to me. So it's funny to me because I do this all the time. This is how I grew up. Those are my two placements that I have. I have Pluto very strongly, hence my hard life. And so I'm like, oh, everybody's not used to that though, and it's refreshing when you talk to like other clients and other people who are like, yeah, I've been, getting at my shadow side for so long, and, really elevating and excelling in life, because you have to face yourself, and it's not good sometimes. I was talking to someone the other day, and I was like, I could have been the villain in someone's life before, but that was my journey. I didn't do anything intentionally, but to them it could have been. It's all in perception. It's all in how people take things sometimes. And it's not always good how they take it. Although we do have a choice in how we want to take things, how someone dishes it out should be respectable as well. Because I know some people will say, well, you didn't have to take it personally. This is gaslighting, And like I said, I don't like that word all the time, but some people will say, you didn't have to take it personally. But it's like, but what did you didn't have to say that either, And so words are very powerful. Words are spells, especially when you spell them out. So if you're cursing people with your words, that's a form of black magic. And this is why people receive their karma from one of my other very strong placements. I love you, Cappy. Capricorn and Saturn. So you have to be careful of what you dish out. You also need to check where Capricorn or Saturn is ruling in your house, because what you dish out, that's the karma that you will be receiving. So it's best to remedy that. And so just understand that if people like your relatives or like your family or your family relatives, well, family are not always relatives. They're not. Family is loving. Relatives are just here because when you were birthed, you're just birthed into, toxicity. It depends. Some people can have good, relatives. So it all depends on what karma you came in with, what portal you came through, and with who. So it all depends, but they will just know that they will receive their karma. So if they're giving you pushback and they're saying, no, I don't want to discuss that, then that's your exit. And you're going to have to resolve it within yourself, I mean, if you absolutely have to, you can also send a letter, and they can choose to read it or rip it up, but at least you did get it out. That is another form of communication, okay? Just know that. Be careful what you put in writing, though. Especially if you're dealing with someone who's maybe narcissistic, don't put anything in writing, okay? Don't put anything in writing. And be sure to videotape them. Be sure to record them if you are dealing with someone like that. Another way to move forward, if someone is willing to have this discussion, I see a lot of people who will sit there, they'll have a discussion with their parents or their relatives, and they'll say, oh, I'm sorry I did that. And some people are okay with the sorry. I'm like, no. Number one, what are you sorry for? Number two, are they self-aware enough to transform? Okay, so while you may appreciate the sorry, if you know this person has not evolved, I know if certain people were to come to me and apologize, like people that I do not talk to, whether family, whether old friends or not, are the same. So I may say, okay, but I will not be around them because they're just gonna cut me again. They're just gonna project again, and they're going to do that to you. Are they doing it intentionally, unintentionally? We don't know, and you shouldn't care because that's their burden. That's them. That's who they are. A lot of times when you're empathic or intuitive or just hypersensitive, you want people to transform so bad, and sometimes they don't want that because they think they're fine. And people think they're fine a lot of the times because they're not in touch with their shadow side. Because your shadow side, I guess, is knocking at you. And this is why we have so many people who are addicted to food and are addicted to toxic substances. And, there's so many addictions because their shadow side is so untouched. Like I said in one of my podcast episodes, it's like Halloween Town when the guy I hated this part on Halloween Town. I was like, he's moving so slow. The room was just gray and he had everybody's stuff in that room. And I'm like, oh my God, they're walking so slow. They're talking so slow. They're moving so fucking slow. And so I'm like, dear God, can we take this part out of Halloween Town? But anyway, that's your subconscious. You got all this stuff. He had everybody's lost stuff went to this man's house and it slowed him down. It made him bigger, widened him. It made him tired. It exhausted him. And that's what happens when you don't deal with your subconscious. It makes you tired. It makes you cranky because that shit made me cranky. It makes you, want to eat a lot, hence, his size. And it's just, that's what will happen with an undealt, and you'll lash out at other people. You'll be cranky. You'll be anxious. You'll be stressed. You'll be a lot of things. And so it's very important to make sure that when someone apologizes to you that they're fully self-aware, that they don't have to be completely healed, but they have to be healed to a point where they're not going to harm you and cause you so much toxicity. And be sure it's not fake, because people will reel you in and do the same thing again. And so what you want to do is appreciate the apology, but limit contact and then no contact with the person. That's going to be hard to do if you're codependent and you always think people have to be fixed. And so the choice is yours, but that is what you can do. That's what you can implement right away. If you need my help, I always have coaching programs available. My Eat Stress Away program, people love that program. It also teaches you how to go and talk to people when you're in these predicaments. It's also on my podcast episodes. I have limited slots for my one-to-one coaching, so you can certainly look at that. And let me know how you liked this video, if you want more of these videos. Comment down below if you've had an aha moment. But I really want to say, if you are currently a parent, whether your children are young or old, do not be manipulative. Don't change your answers constantly and be wishy-washy. When you say something, deliver on that promise. When you've done something wrong, don't put the blame back on them. That's very egotistical, it's very arrogant, and it's very low vibrating, and it's very toxic. And I'm no stranger to that. And I'm also fully transparent, so you can listen to my interviews about my parents, about family, about friends, whoever I've encountered. People randomly do that. They don't even have to be related to you. People just do stuff like that to where it's like, this is draining. And if you lack self-love and people are draining you, you're always going to, it's important to set boundaries. You have to set boundaries. Do that today. Start saying what makes you feel vibrant, what makes you feel energized. Are the people in your life making you feel that way, or are they draining the fuck out of you? What would happen if you were in a similar situation? If you were to lose everything today, who's gonna send you a bag of grapes? I talked about that on my podcast. I know exactly who would be there for me if that was to happen ever again, because it did, and I saw exactly who. And so when people think like I'm obligated to speak to them again, I'm like, do you want me to remind you of 2016 and 2017? You weren't there, so I don't owe you anything, you know? But then you'll get someone who gaslights you, and they'll say something like, well, you're unforgiving. It's like, that has nothing to do with unforgiveness. That's a boundary. If you're being an energy vampire, that's horrible for your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health to be around an energy vampire. So you want to make sure you're around people who are reciprocal, people who you give and receive. You know, it's not always giving. Now, sometimes you're going to have days where someone can maybe get sick and you may have to cook, clean, wash, go to the grocery store, do a lot of things. Maybe someone loses their job and you have to work extra hard, you know, but, you know, because life happens. But in terms of you just dealing with like toxic people, it's not necessary. It's not necessary. And it's not about harping on what has happened. It's about knowing what has happened and saying that's a boundary that you're not going to cross. People will respect you when they know your boundaries. And if people decide to disrespect your boundaries, then you gotta do what you gotta do. Honestly, if people think like it's funny to do that, I remember when I was at Whole Foods, and it was this older, it was my first episode on Avi Unfiltered. It was this older, very egotistical, arrogant woman. And I'm politely minding my business and waiting for, you know, the buffet to open at Whole Foods like years back. And she cut in front of me, and I was like, because she looks at me as, first of all, I'm melanated. She wasn't. We're in, you know, sometimes when people are in ritzy places or suburbs, they kind of look down on people who have more, and I'm not saying you have to be like darker to be melanated, because there's different shades, but I was darker than her. And she was older. So sometimes people are just arrogant for whatever reason. Although I'm indigenous and my ancestors are ancient and they built everything. So if anyone wanted to be arrogant, it would be me, but I'm not. But she was. So she had cut in front of me, and I said, you know, you cut in front of me and I've been waiting here. Just ignored me and was, you know, getting her food. And so I said something to her again. And as I'm getting my food, she kind of like nudges my shoulder, and I just defended myself. So she got shoved across the room, as she should, because you don't put your hands on anybody. And her husband was there. Her husband did not take up for her. Her husband did not say anything, because she was just rude. She was just plain rude. And so when you have to let people know what your boundaries are, period. I don't condone any sort of violence unless you have to defend yourself, period. And I think everybody should know that if someone is putting their hands on you, you don't have to stand there. I don't care what kind of career you have. I don't care if you go to church. I don't care how rigid it is, you know? It all depends. And so you have to let people know what it is at all times, no matter what. So hopefully that helps you. I hope this video helps you. Definitely put it into practice, implement it. If you're dealing with any post-trauma or anything, like I said, I have programs for you. Let's see what the word of the day is. Miliste gato naftosas. That is speak up for yourself in Greek. That's one of my languages. And hable por ti mismo. That is Spanish. I'm sure you guys know it's Moorish Latin, which is modern day Spanish. And Greek came from Moors, M-O-O-R-S, or Aboriginal Indigenous people, or Egyptians. There's a bunch of different titles or names, you know, that people call us ancient people. So Phoenicians, Aztec, what else is there? There's a bunch of different ones. Just like Hebrew is, the modern Hebrew is really Chaldean. So it's really Chaldean. People ask all the time, you know, what is this? You know, Avishai means gift from God or gift from the Creator. And it's Chaldean, although, you know, it's modern day Hebrew. So let's get the card of the day. I could shuffle in the air. Ooh. So these are my little self-care cards. Let's see what positive affirmation Creator, Spirit, and angels want to give you before you get sent off to have a beautiful day, a non-toxic day. I gave you all solutions. Okay, well that one fell, so we'll take that one. 2 of them. See? It always correlates. I let go of everything that is no longer serving my highest good. So let go of everything that's no longer serving your highest good. Okay? Sleep. Some of you have trouble sleeping. Go to sleep. Some of you also need cardamom. I'm seeing mucus, breathing issues too. I'm also seeing something with September. I also heard the winter. You want to start boosting your immune system now. See, all these messages are coming through. If you want to book a reading to figure out what's happening with you mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, I offer that as well. My choices and possibilities are expanding at every moment. Focus on yourself and what you want to do, okay? Focus on yourself and what you want to do. Give yourself the love that you never received. Start writing down your goals. Start working towards what you want to work towards. Refocus your attention on the positive, okay? I find when I'm learning new languages, like I said, my English is broken. I've always had a different accent anyways. Anyone will tell you, like even my relatives, they'll tell you. They'll tell you. Yeah, and if I'm like excited or upset or something, it will really come out, but my English is broken more so. You know, like I'll say instead of, oh, wear sweatpants, I'll say wear a sweatpants. So it all depends. It all depends. So anyways, have a wonderful day. I will talk to you next week, and tomorrow tune into the Avi Unfiltered podcast. It's new episodes every single Tuesday. It's new episodes every single Monday on YouTube. And so I'll see you loverly peacefuls. Again, have a beautiful day. Go do it. It is one of your action items from this video.